I am a child of digital transformation. I got super excited in '99 when NASDAQ was almost 5,000 points and I applied for a program. By the time I reached US, NASDAQ was at 2,000. That's the power of digital transformation. There have been ups and downs. There has been some awesome stuff that has happened. There is some stuff that we don't understand and we get too excited about. And there is obviously, like everything in life, there is an ugly side. The good of digital transformation is literally saving lives, helping doctors with better diagnosis, and it's becoming even more relevant when we look at LLMs, diagnosing diseases, passing MCAT, for example. Radiologists are doing much better when they use AI-related trained models. There is a lot of excitement around chatbots, right? We get very excited, and the simple assumption there is, hey, it's plug and play. But when you dig deeper, whether it's Erica by BankAm, or you look at Klarna and their use of intelligent bots, or Indigo, you start realizing there is a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that we don't get access to. Just to give you some numbers, BankAm has spent almost $3 billion over the last 6 years training Erica. And now, yes, they're talking about that, how it has had more than 2 billion interactions with customers. Now they're sharing information about how it can it's becoming a wealth advisor slowly but surely for their clients. So that preparation becomes the invisible labor that popular media sometimes does not cover. And of course, there is the ugly side of it. But before we go to the ugly side, there is a cute side to it, right? Like I'm a big user of Llama 3.2, creating cartoons and almost creating a comic strip on my own. The same thing, if you go to DALL-E and so on and on and on. Sora is right now proprietary, but it's only a matter of time. If you look at the fact that we could create our own videos with a small subscription, that has massive implications. Is there an ugly side? Yes, everything has an ugly side. Technology in general has an ugly side. There is an angle to this obsession with GenAI, which affects lives. Can it manipulate people? Yes, it can. In fact, there was a report in New York Times about their journalist with funding from the editorial team and permission from his wife, having 13 AI-generated girlfriends online. Some of them were free, others were subscription models. And worryingly enough, a subset were very explicit. And the idea of permission was taken for granted. When he did not interact with some of them, they were sending him emails and prompts, where are you? We are missing you. Deep fakes we already know about. So, we need a balanced perspective. Yes, but I'm a firm believer, I'm an optimist in life. The fact is that the good usually overcomes the ugly side. So I want to hand it over, start the conversation with you guys. It's amazing. We have Accenture, ABG, and Meta aware here. I would love to know your perspectives on the good side, and before we get into the ugly or the hard work. What is the most exciting piece of digital transformation that you have personally witnessed and you were like, wow?
Is that to somebody in particular, or?
No, it's love to hear your views. We start with Meta.
Thank you so much for the setup. Yeah, no, look, we always go back to this statement, India is in its decade, and there is absolutely no other way to look at it. So first and foremost, that itself is a huge exciting point, whether it's the India tech stack, the payments technology, which is first in class, or now the advent of AI and Gen AI. I think we tend to confuse the two a lot. AI has always been around. So to my mind, and I'm representing Meta here, but I can tell you some of the most exciting work that I'm seeing coming out is both in the space of doing good. So the Llama technology is now, we just had a hackathon in Bangalore with 300 developer teams set up to do a 90-hour hackathon on developing different use cases using Llama 3.2. One of the things that came out was the prediction of healthcare problems in the space of tissues and heart disease, and predicting it before it can happen. So there are that's just one of the use cases. There is, I don't know how many of you follow Mr. Jan LeCun. He's our chief AI scientist at Meta. He's one of the top luminaries in the world and he's been developing the whole AI technology of Meta for the last 13 years. We recently published a model on AI where Llama is being used to predict weather models and changes in the patterns. Is the pattern of weather change speeding up faster or not? That's just the good part. Then there is the here and today part, right? Right now, businesses are being generated. I mean, last count, India has 2 million businesses that are delivering their profitability, their business, their customers, the entire experience, their whole P&L on the back of platforms such as Meta, Google, Amazon. All of these are pushed or rather powered through AI models that find the right audience at the most effective prices. It has totally changed the way marketing and businesses are being run. So, and then we go into the whole perspective of generative AI. I can tell you I come from a time in marketing where I spent 6 months obsessing over a TV commercial. I spent my formative years in still what I consider the temple of marketing, which is Hindustan Unilever. And we took pride in spending those 6 months writing the brief, researching it, and building a beautiful TVC that would run for the next year or so. That entire process has disintegrated, disintermediated. The creative angle is you can generate creatives of all kinds to feed an algorithm that will find the right creative amongst a million creatives, deliver a great outcome in 30 seconds. We are just at the base camp of that journey. It's just going to accelerate from here. So when you say what's most exciting, I can't seem to understand what is more exciting than to see businesses flourish, or to see healthcare flourish, or the predictive power of models on weather, on mobility, all of that flourish. I think since the advent of the internet, we're probably at the next massive movement on tech. I would liken this moment to that. So inviting everybody to jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I go next. So first of all, thank you for inviting me here. So I come from Aditya Birla Group, and this institute also is part of overall group strategy and education. So I'm more of a host than a guest in some way. And I think we are into many businesses. We are into some very, I won't say legacy, but traditional businesses like cement, aluminum, pulp and fiber, and also some very new age businesses which are into financial services, into retail with multiple brands. And, we recently opened up a new business on jewelry as well. We again started on paints. So I think the good side is that first, digital brings in a lot of efficiency to our businesses. It takes out the wastes in many areas, and waste is generally harmful for the nation as a whole. And we are seeing some very good benefits, tangible benefits on energy saving, for example, because some of our businesses are very heavy on energy consumption, like cement, aluminum, etc. And we see some great use cases on energy savings, which is a very good part. We see a lot of savings on transportation, because again, we consume almost 5% of India's logistics in some way as a group. And that's again, the gains are very significant. The piece which is very close to my heart, and I think it's making a big difference, is on sustainability. Because with all the circular economy happening, the way we, for example, use drones, I'm shifting from LLMs to drones in some way, and to measure emissions is very path-breaking. We are using a lot of these automation, robotics, to, for example, to clean tanks, which are very hazardous. And again, a lot of saving of lives in some way, and not exposing our people to hazardous situations where a lot of work can be done by using intelligent robots. Also something which we experimented, which was very interesting, we always think of digital being in some very sophisticated places, But I think when you land it in the hands of people who are working class, which typically we refer to as blue collar segment, I think that's where the most good part happens. Recently, we did an experiment. We trained our masons who put tiles, on the walls by using cement through AR, VR. We created a special haptic tool and we said, okay, guys, wear these headsets and you start training. So they get to measure the angle, they know the force. And the results were outstanding. The cost of training one mason came down to what, 25 rupees only? And we could train hundreds of thousands of masons in a very short time. The quality is much better. They save a lot of time. And I think there's lots and lots of practical use cases we are seeing in a group where digital is being applied. And that's a very good part, actually. I'll spare the bad and the ugly, but I think a lot of good part is happening as well.
Excellent. So first of all, thanks BITSoM for inviting me, and congratulations on building a great campus, Mr. Dean and BITS family. I was telling him we absolutely need a campus and a management business school campus like this in a city like Mumbai. So great to see that happening. My lens today, being from Accenture, is going to be more about what do we see in global organizations. And a lot of global organizations have presence in India and also large workforces. And all of you sitting here at the back aspire to be part of large organizations. I want to highlight four positives or four exciting things which I see happening through digital transformation. First, I think it was a bit covered, but the speed and scale at which you can drive benefits, material benefits, I think is improving significantly. When you are a country-specific or a geo-specific, that's a different ballgame. But when you are a global organization, present in hundreds of countries, across multiple businesses, you want different parts of your organization to get impacted and at scale. And digital transformation technologies enable that. In fact, I have a bit of a different view on ROI. ROIs are improving significantly if you do things in the right way. So that's one theme. I think the other theme is what we in Accenture call as 360-degree value. Technology, digital transformation technologies allow you to drive multiple sources of values. So it could be cost and automation and waste takeout, but it could be about experience improvement. It could be about compliance improvement. It could be about risk mitigation. It could be about top line improvement. Technologies now help you drive all of these at good ROI almost in parallel. I think the third aspect is transformation traditionally have always focused on one function, right? So if you look at corporate function, it's finance or in HR. And if you look at value chain of any industry, look at a bank, it will impact one particular part of the value chain. Again, technology is now here, and it could be cloud, security, data AI, generative AI. They help you drive end-to-end transformation. And that's another big, because you really unlock value when you do it end-to-end. And last but not the least, in the most exciting part, and I was smiling about the discussion in the previous session, we always believe in it's always human plus machine. It's not either or. People absolutely remain at the center of all digital transformation. And I actually believe these technologies help enhance and improve roles and jobs. I think we heard a great example of marketing. You take someone in financial planning analysis, you take leadership. These technologies help you automate waste, get you things more in your hands ready, help extract things at a role level, but even at an end-to-end level. So I just believe promise of these technologies to enhance roles and jobs, if you do in the right way by skilling people, is enormous. And we are seeing signs of that already.
That's awesome. So we've talked about the good. Let's ask ourselves, I would love to ask you guys, what does it take to realize the good? There are always tricky steps. I remember, since we were talking in the earlier stage about data science, I remember as a PhD student being told, if you torture the data long enough, it'll confess to anything. And so you need some governance mechanisms there. There are always going to be tough challenges because we're talking transformation. And whenever transformation happens, there will be jobs that will change, if not lost. People will have to change their habits. What would you like to share with the audience about the top 3 things to be careful about when we go for these transformations? Digging in and feel free to share your own experiences of any tricky situations you faced.
Maybe I'll start first this time. I'll touch upon a couple of areas. One is talent and people impact, and I think that's huge, and we see it more positive than challenging. I think few things now are super important for every organization is what we call as TQ. That's technology quotient. So we've typically measured intelligent quotient and emotional quotient, IQ and EQ, TQ, right? And we got to infuse sense of curiosity and learning of technology in everyone. Because technology is for helping get things do better, and no one should fear that. So that's theme number 1. Second, it's always about reimagining work. And yes, there are impacts of technology around automation, wastages, but if you really look at reimagining work, put as a, put to be, in to be you put, where you are infusing technology, where you can do more value add, where you can provide more insights into your role, right? Is your role or job becoming net better for yourself as well as for the organization? And that's where you get a lot of benefits, and that's very important. The third aspect is a proper change management program. You got to take your talent and people along. It's leadership responsibility. You got to invest some of your savings back in your change, program. And last but not the least is reskilling. As I think technologies are for good, but they are changing so fast. You got to make sure that you are reskilling yourself as well as your talent. So that's one theme about what we need to do to get this right. I think the other theme, and a part of it got covered in the earlier session, is what we call a responsible technology, responsible AI, and in the context of AI. And I know there are a lot of discussion on bias, so I think that's great. But there are a number of other things to do things responsibly as well, and that's one, security. As you use more data, you get to data which is more specific, personal data, GDPR norms, compliance norms. While you address your bias point, you got to get that absolutely right, because as you scale this, and that's even more relevant for global organizations, get your compliance right. Second is security, right? I think you hear about challenges all the time, right? You want to absolutely get your security right if you want to do your digital transformation. Last but not the least is sustainability. Also physical technology models, they consume a lot of compute, a lot of cloud, a lot of energy, right? So are we optimizing them? And a very visible leadership level commitment and governance around both your talent and responsible technology agenda. I think those 2 things are very important as we really get the benefits of the digital transformation.
Maybe I go next, and I think there are a lot of things one has to take into account as a practitioner who does it day in, day out. One is getting the architecture right. I don't think we spend a lot of time on architecture, and it's a bad word in general, and it's a tough thing to do. I'll give you an example. We recently had a nice B2B e-commerce business. Last year we launched. Now, when we architected it, we realized that we don't need even an ERP system to do that business. Normally, the idea would be that you start investing into something off the shelf. You spend a lot of time and energy, and the business doesn't go well. Because it's a new business model, and sometimes when you have a new business model, you may like to architect it very differently. And for example, we hired some very bright person who used to run supply chain of one of the 10 minutes delivery, and he custom built the entire order orchestration. Now that's the IP. That's where the the USP of the business lies. And you don't need to buy cots and start customizing, spending a lot of time, et cetera, et cetera. And if you architect your components well, you start getting exactly what you need. Second thing, which we always guard against, and I keep telling everyone who works with me and all my stakeholders, some of them could be very powerful as well, is not to get fascinated by the technology hype. And there's a $3 trillion industry, including Accenture, by the way, so who push their products, and there's a hype. And enterprises are not able to resist because there's a lot of big money going after you, and with a lot of, actually, Dr. Savanan said it, that there are glossy conferences, a lot of things spoken about, et cetera, and you get to lose the truth. What's the truth like, right? And you peel the onion, you realize that what is being spoken about is not exactly 5% of what's being spoken about. And so one has to be very watchful, guard against it, and make sure you have the conviction of what you need, at what value it drives, and which are not easy decisions for a practitioner, because you are pitted against some big hype, okay? And that's the second part we take care. Third part, I think, has already been spoken about, is the putting the users in the center, because it's like a transplant of, kidney in some way. Body may reject the kidney if it's not done well, if your DNA is not matching. And I think that's where the entire, I would say, the consumer grade experience is again very important. And if you take care of these three things, the good architecture, selection of right blocks, and putting user at the center, generally you get it right. And that's been my experience, and these are easier said than done, and I think you need to put a lot of efforts there.
Prof, I'll respond to your question from what I know best. So at Meta, we connect people. So we have 4 big stakeholders. First and foremost are the users, obviously, right? There are 3.2 billion users who use us daily. That's 1 out of every 2 people on the planet, right? That's one stakeholder set. The other one are developers who use our technology, our reach, to build applications for different business use cases, and who are users of Llama now in a very big way, right? The third stakeholder is the advertiser or the business owner, and all kinds of business owners here today, right? In fact, we work with Aditya Birla Group on the finance side and many other parts of Aditya Birla Group. So that's the advertisers who are leveraging the scale, reach, and the AI of Meta to drive business outcomes. And the fourth, of course, are employees like myself. So that's the fourth stakeholder. So I'll touch upon each of these. What are we doing to release the good in it? So at the user level, it's right at the mission. The mission is, we fundamentally believe that if we connect everybody in the world and enable the most seamless connections, conversations, and commerce, fundamentally the world will be a better place. Yes, there will be bad actors, and I will touch upon that. But fundamentally, it will make the world a better place. It will break down barriers. And that has been the mission forever. And we continue on that mission. Core to that mission is the power of its AI. You cannot connect the world in this way. You cannot bring everybody onto a singular platform unless the AI is finding audiences, serving up an engaging, enriching experience to you that makes you want to go back every day. I'll be very honest. I mean, lots of people in this room might be thinking, hey, Facebook is like a platform of the old. It's 51 crore Indians use it daily. And I am one of those who have found a lot of friends and got back in touch with family members and friends across the world and continue to stay so because of this platform. That's firstly, the very good in its own mission. With WhatsApp now, there are farmers who find their daily pricing of their crops every single day on WhatsApp when they respond to different handles.
We also get the menu from the Tuli just outside on WhatsApp, just outside of the campus.
Meta AI, it's now about 500 million users of Meta AI monthly. How many of you use Meta AI? Because the largest users of Meta AI are in India. If anybody heard Mark Zuckerberg's last earnings call, they are in India. That is unbelievable. Of course, Meta's largest user base is in India, but Meta AI in different languages, not English, being used outside in farms of Raebareli. So our WhatsApp leadership team was here last month and they were traveling across the country and they discovered that farmers are using Meta AI and asking it questions in Hindi. The machine understands it, responds with information about crop patterns, about weather. Now, they were blown away by the very fact that that's the level of users. They were expecting that the more urban audience will be using Meta AI. So that's on the user side, and I can keep going on, but I won't bore you. There's a developer side I just spoke about. As of right now, Llama has been downloaded over 200 million times. You and I are not downloading Llama. Developers are downloading Llama to build different use cases around everything, right? It could be a CRM use case, it could be a marketing use case, it could be a cost optimization use case, it could be health, it could be mobility, it could be anything. That's also being powered by AI. On the advertiser side, I just spoke about it. There are advertisers across every single domain, from CPG to auto to retail to e-commerce, and small businesses, hotels, flower shops, restaurants, single entrepreneur businesses are the ones who find the greatest efficiency of audience. They are able to find their audience because of the AI. You could never do that 10 years ago. And that AI has just gotten more and more powerful. They can create their websites in a few minutes because of the AI. They can create, they don't have to invest in heavy duty creative services because of AI. They can generate basic text to video, text to animation, changes in backgrounds, colors, mood, everything, music, through AI, right? That's the good. What are we doing to release that good? Working with advertisers at all kinds of levels to help them master this. This is a huge change. It's not easy to master. Last and not the least, employees like us, we are very clear. Jobs will not go away. When the motor car came, most people thought jobs would be lost by the horse-driven car. What happened was an entire jobs ecosystem around the entire auto OEMs and supplier ecosystem developed. The same thing is going to happen here. Jobs will be lost by those who don't know AI. More jobs will be created. That's what we fundamentally believe. So a lot of skilling is going on internally. I'm writing performance reviews this year for the first time using AI. I'm going to look at it, of course, a lot. I'm not going to totally just say, hey, generate it for my 20 employees and then send it out there. Of course not. And somebody touched upon humans at the control gear of AI, but that's how we are working. Now, this is about the AI. What's the bad side? At this scale, there are going to be bad actors. Let's be real. There will be people who will use this for hate, for violence, for misinformation, for election manipulation. We are deploying billions of dollars of that AI infrastructure to take it down, and yet there are people left over. Yeah, the machine can only do that much. That's where the humans step in. Over 40,000 moderators are at work 24/7 around the world in different sites, looking at content to try and bring that down. It still won't be zero. I want to tell you that as well, right? So it's an ever bettering cycle, but my belief, fundamental belief, is it just will continue to make the world a fundamentally better place. And there'll be a lot of hallucination, biases, that will happen. Let's be real, where humans are concerned, there's bias. We are biased too. We are the ones who are writing that AI code. I don't know if I answered the question, but...
No, that's great. And actually, that is a perfect curtain raiser for let's talk about some of the tougher things, the ugly and the scary side. And we respond in different ways. I'll openly share my response. When OpenAI came about, I got scared because I would always give take-home exams. And for the first time in 18 years of teaching, I had an in-class, sit-down, handwritten exam. Because I was like, I don't know how to grade this. And of course, there were howls of protest saying that, Prof, I have not written a page in like a decade, these MBAs, right? And I was like, okay, that's fine. You have 8 weeks to learn how to write again. Humans are capable of using paper and pencil. From there to now, when I'm like, okay, you can use any AI engine because a lot depends upon your own effort. So we need guardrails, right? And we need also historical perspective, because it took us 40 years after automobiles became prominent to mandate seat belts, right? So I would love to hear your perspectives on guardrails from a governance perspective. What are the precautions? I know you just shared that you're spending billions of dollars to avoid the bad actors, but more in the transformation perspective. What are some of the guardrails that you have experienced to really work effectively? I would love to hear your views on that.
I covered this, Professor, briefly earlier. For us, I think 4 things are very important as we do work for ourselves as well as for our clients. We covered bias, but in simple terms, it's 3 things. One is get your training data right, learn from your users through formal feedback. We don't often do that, and ensure that the right quality mechanism. So ensuring biases are addressed is very important. Second is compliance. I cannot even tell you how complex compliance guardrails and rules are, and they are like 101, right? Because there's a lot of talk about data science and ML and machine learning. They all use data, but unless you understand and put right mechanisms in it for your compliance regarding around data, I think whatever happens, business outcomes, ROI is not sustainable. So that's important. Goes with that is security. Very clear standards, investments in security. Some of these were more optional investments and approaches earlier, but now it's something almost mandatory, right? So that's very important. And the last one I talked about was sustainability. I think some of these can have impact on cost is one, but even energy consumption, right? So, anything fancy you do needs to ensure that you understand what is the impact on energy consumption and build that into your plan. So I think these are all very important points, and they need to be part of our day-to-day governance. And I'll re-emphasize what I said earlier, impact on jobs, roles, and people. I think they are all different. I think it's important, and applying some of your investments back into drive change, reskilling. I think it's how everyone needs to be thinking investment strategy in their governance.
Yeah, I think a lot has been said. On technology side, there are, of course, challenges on security, big time. There's a challenge on a lot of regulations which are coming up, including data residency, data privacy, and which add on a lot of cost. While technology is seen as very fungible, but I think each government world over is trying to put a barrier in some way. They don't want their data to go out. They want to protect the data of all their citizens. That's one. There are a lot of what we call the different kind of regulations which are coming up. India is also moving in that direction, unfortunately. So I think while it's seen fungible, it's not as fungible as we see, and that's a one big challenge. Second, we see some monopolistic behavior by many technology providers world over, which are very ugly in nature. And I think we have to guard. As a country, we import most of the software. We don't produce our software. That's ugly side, despite being a very large country with a lot of developers. In any enterprise, I think 90-95% software will be, while maybe produced in India, but will be bought in dollars in some way. So that's ugly side. We don't have good local, cost-effective vernacular softwares in the country, which is a pity. Second, the biggest problem is creating a kind of a divide. It's like apartheid in an organization. People who know digital are seen, as folks who know a lot. But let's not forget that it's a very small population of the country. There are people who do farming, a large population does farming. There are people who are growing food for us. There are people who are building stuff. And, they need to be included in this entire revolution. And I think they are somewhere being left behind. WhatsApp is a great thing. That's a big inclusion in some way. And I think that's bridging a lot of gap. But at the end, I think we have to guard against the hype. Finally, it's information which is being exchanged in a digital way. But I think there's a physical work also which is happening. And let's not underestimate the physical part of it. I think by overlaying emphasis on the digital part and forgetting the physical part. I think if we do it well, physical will become better. But only digital for digital will be a self-serving and self-destructing cause, in some way. Yeah.
So the guardrails that at least we're putting in place is at two levels. One, of course, what I spoke about is the computing power dedicated to actually monitoring all the content on the platform, because that to us is the greatest risk, right? So there is an enormous amount of computing power. I don't know how many of you read a little article that said there is a decision to invest huge amounts of dollars in a undersea subsea cable from the US to, it'll end in India, because India is consuming so much data because the Indian population is so digitally savvy. Every day we are creating more data than what the entire first 20 years of the internet did. Now we do that much in a day or less. That the data centers will start getting located in India. So one is localization of data. Second is the infrastructure investment to keep monitoring. Third is, I think, the biggest move, and it was a pretty disruptive move, to make the AI technology safer, is to open source it. At its heart, the founders of this organization have felt open sourcing allows for everybody to build on it, and therefore it'll get better faster. And people will not be able to use it for use cases that are hidden, because it'll be always open sourced and it'll always come up, and the technology will get much better, much faster. So that's a big move. The fourth one is the regulatory piece. We're working with European Union commissions across the US, India, everybody, to already start talking to them about how will this entire space get regulated. And now we're working with other organizations in the tech space to form a common point of view, because everybody agrees it has to be, any kind of powerful technology also has to be regulated without stifling the innovation that is required, because it's very early days. You stifle it today, and that's something that, in fact, we believe happening in Europe a lot, where we've not released our latest AI models because it is the regulatory stand there is so cutting down on the innovation that, in fact, there are European innovators who are saying, and BITSoM is saying, the next big tech company has not come from the European Union for the last 30 years. It's either coming from China or India or the US. So there is a balance we're trying to draw at the regulatory end. So, but those are the 4 areas in which we're trying to draw guardrails around the tech.
Awesome, thank you all of you. I just now want to open the floor for the audience. Your questions, what would you like to ask the whole panel here?
I'm Arup, and let me just visit that keywords, innovate and lead. It's very comforting to see business leaders like you putting humanity in the center of technology. My question to you is, given this VUCA world today, we all understand what VUCA is. Together with digital transformation, throw in conflicts, geopolitics, it's really a messy world. To me, innovation is something which individually it'll change the way I think, feel, see, do, and say. If you use that, I ask you, eminent leaders, what is the leadership mindset necessary to make it happen? We all believe that innovation is necessary to thrive and not just to survive. So over to you, your esteemed panel members.
I think leadership mindset of what we call a 360-degree value is very important. And by 360-degree value, we mean multiple outcomes you need to address as you use technology, drive innovation. There's financial outcomes which everyone needs to drive, but there are outcomes around sustainability. There are outcomes around stakeholder experience. There are outcomes around inclusion and diversity. There are outcomes around employees. And even if you are a public company or a commercial organization, anything you do need to ensure that you are balancing or optimizing all these outcomes. That leadership mindset is fundamental to ensure that we do right things with innovation and technology. And not just be focused on financials or commercial outcomes.
I think a couple of things in the leadership mindset. One is having a growth mindset, which is super important because that means you start assimilating a lot of variables which are beyond your comfort zone. That's one. Second, to be bold. None of this is easy. And I think the bold leadership is something which we see around in my organization quite a lot. And a bit of risk-taking ability as well, which comes from being bold. I think essential ones in this time of VUCA, because also this is a kind of inflection point. If you look at it, the amount of innovation which has happened in the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, I think it's all exponentially growing, in the last century in some way. So I think it'll all settle down in a while, because when people say this is the fourth industrial revolution, it's also maybe in the humankind, it's kind of a phase we are going through, which is completely new. So I think people are learning, making mistakes, figuring out. So those who are willing to experiment, willing to be bold, they will survive very well. Yeah.
Thank you for the questions. Very interesting. It makes me reflect. So I touched upon the fact that for the longest time, I worked at an organization I still greatly admire, which is Unilever. And the leadership there used to talk about this all the time, which is how do you do good by doing good how do you do good for the business without doing good for the community, right? And that's at the heart of the mission of most organizations that are sustained across the world. I take that leaf out and I take that to the organization I work for right now. It defines its very mission as, if you connect people better, it'll make the world a better place. And now after that, the technology is an enabler in that. So to me, the question is flipped around saying, as business leaders, we have to examine if in our mission, doing good for the community is integral to the business model or not. If it's not and you're force-fitting it, then the problem is not the technology. The problem is the fact that at the heart of your business is not, it's at odds with what is good for the larger community, right? So that's the way we always think about it. The rest of it follows. The tech is just an enabler and an accelerator. In fact, now with all this AI and computing power available to us, we can do more good. It's like any technology. You can use it for the wrong or you can use it for the right. It depends on what the organizational mission is and if they're sticking close to it, right? I mean, the same AI power has been used by Wall Street trading to really not do very good stuff for the community, right? And the same AI is going to predict weather models.
Absolutely. You raised the word VUCA. It's leaders operate in a gray zone where they're trying to predict with fog to understand what's at the horizon, right? And it requires a delicate balancing act because things are changing so fast. You need a childlike innocence and excitement to do little experiments to see what is possible. But at the same time, you need like a parent-like disposition to discipline the child. Okay, you've had too much fun. Now let's make sure that we are responding to our stakeholders. Any other questions? Yeah. Gentleman in the middle.
Yeah. So, first of all, great conversation, quite insightful. I just had a question for the entire panel. Do you think the digital transformation inherently favors large organizations over smaller ones, or do you think it levels the playing field for everyone?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
It absolutely levels the field. Your moats are gone. I'll give you an example. This is not from my company. All of you must be aware of the quick commerce explosion happening across the country. It's a solution built in India, right? There was a time when big distribution companies, FMCG companies, retail companies, had distribution as its core moat because it is very expensive to build, right? Today, the smallest of brands are exploding on consumption usership across at least the top 10% of Indian audiences, and it'll expand to beyond 10% very soon. And there are large brands who are losing dramatic share because of this explosion of quick commerce. It is the smaller brands who are leveling the field because the distribution moat is gone. I was talking to ITC the other day. ITC's share of cigarettes in its main core distribution offline channel is 90%. In quick commerce, it's 50%. I'm not not commenting on cigarettes. I'm just using it as an example. Same is happening for a lot of other FMCGs, right? So when I come back to the organization I work in, across the world, there are more than 50 million small businesses who find their daily livelihood. And these are all small, minor businesses who find their audiences and are able to target efficiently, get the business, and keep going. And that's actually the heart of our business. It's not large businesses. The large businesses came much later.
And I'll just add to it, if you look at cost of computing for a startup versus a large business, with cloud being there, that differentiator has gone away. You don't need to invest into heavy capex to start something. So that's a great leveler, actually. You have ready platforms where you can, very quickly, like quick commerce, can be started. And so I think a lot of businesses have been disrupted, new age digital businesses who have disrupted the business models of very large companies in some way. And I think slowly and slowly, world over, these startups are moving from pure tech to very deep domain-driven startups in some way. And they're challenging really the big guys. So in fact, it's a great opportunity for somebody to create a new business model and start disrupting. If you look at digital first in many ways, yeah.
I'll just add, and I'll take a bit of a different lens. We talked about organizations, I'll also talk about individuals. I think there's a complete level playing field from someone staying in a tier 1 city or a village or developed world or a developing country to Western world across age groups. I think this is amazing level field. The technology, the person most digitally savvy in my family is my dad, right? He uses all possible apps and digital channels. He would go to a bank. He was in his 60s to check his PF. Now he does everything digitally, right? So I think the level playing field, both in organizations and in personal lives, has been amazing due to digital transformation.
You had a question right in the middle. Can somebody please share a mic? Here in the middle, in the second row. Hello? It's okay.
Thank you. So I think I want to touch upon a little bit on the user profiles. We have been talking about technology, digital transformation being used, but if you see the major audience, like in a country, is MSME. It's all fragmented. It's completely unorganized, right? And I agree there is a level playing field, and they've been using technology across the board, like from a farmer to a tier 2, tier 3 markets, etc. But they are up against someone like Meta, right? And whatever they're, no, I'm just using, I think, with all due respect, but I'm saying that who is going to sort of create that awareness in their mind that the products they are using, what about their data security, data privacy, etc. And that's where the regulator role comes into play, right? Because they are the one who are supposed to be implementing those guardrails which you mentioned on them. Now, the challenge with India is that most of these regulatory directives which come, would come with more like a tick-the-box approach. To give you an example, I think I belong to a financial services firm, and we are a very small firm, but we are disproportionately doing risky transactions. Now, in our organizations, there is no one to basically guide us to say that you have to do this, to ensure that your data is protected, it's secure, etc. And suddenly SEBI came out with a 200-page circular saying that now you are supposed to do a data security and data resilience framework. You need to implement that, right? And again, I'm very sure this is going to end up like, again, one more compliance thing. The spirit of that circular is going to go. The next day, I started receiving emails from all the consultants saying that we will do this audit, cybersecurity audit, data privacy audits, et cetera, and they will just come, do some work, and they will go away. So ultimately, the question remains, I, as a compliance officer, is very worried about the data moving around in the organization, moving outside of organization. And I look up to my regulator to guide me and ensure that something happens. But the regulatory framework, like, Meta must be interacting with regulators, but I don't know, will you bring out something like a GDPR in India? Will you insist on yourself and tell the regulator that, look, we are giving all these rights in European Union, etc. Please allow us to give these rights to an Indian consumer as well. I mean that's the kind of action we would like to see, and maybe I would like to hear your responses on these questions.
I'm sensing this question is pointed at me, but first and foremost, I would like to...
one, to all of you. Thank
First
you.
and foremost, I don't know why you feel like you use the term "you are up against Meta." I don't understand that phrase. So we are just the enabler.
I'm not.
We're just the enabler. Secondly, we are not drivers of the regulation. We just want to have a point of view, a voice in the room. Given the size of the platforms, the regulation should be to the benefit of consumers, users, advertisers, businesses like yourself that you're a part of, right? If SEBI is deciding on a certain regulation, we have no voice there. We are also recipients of the regulation. Let's be clear. Absolutely, they don't come talking to anybody. Many of the regulatory bodies don't talk, or they consult with many other bodies outside of tech companies, right? Tech companies are just one stakeholder in the entire landscape of stakeholders. So to your point, we don't have a POV on whether India should copy the GDPR of European Union. Frankly, that's the European Union's prerogative. In India, there is already a Data Protection Act under progress, right? Which calls for localization of data centers, and on that, companies like us are obviously interacting with them, trying to understand better how will you do it, what are the costs of it, what's a better way to do it. These are global companies. There are big challenges where data moves freely across borders. It's not a geographically ring-fenced organization, right? So there are a lot of challenges. So yeah, we keep talking to regulators at different levels to understand and help shape a more positive regulation. But that's all I can share. But definitely we are not in the driving seat of any regulation anywhere in the world. That's not even the role.
Let me
Go ahead, please.
Okay, add to it. I speak to many regulators and ask about the implementation aspect, in some way that they're bringing out some big policies, data residency, DPDP, et cetera, They say, listen, we have to move in that direction. And, sometimes people in government, they take a very different view. They say, listen, let's enact a policy. Surely the ecosystem will develop, it will cater to itself. And that's their view right now. And sometimes it looks harsh from compliance, as I say, but at the same time, at global level, they want to be seen. People tell me that the IT minister's understanding of data resiliency is much higher than people who actually provide the solutions. People are very zealous of creating a lot of policies, etc., because they are getting more global. They travel around the world, they understand the importance of data. They're getting a lot of meetings with a lot of big CEOs. So what happens at the end? They end up creating those policies. They forget about what's happening at the ground level, how a shopkeeper is going to comply. But they say, listen, we introduced GST and the ecosystem developed, and things started moving. So all these things will happen as well. So there's a sense of optimism. There could be a time lag, but I think in a few years, it'll all get normalized.
I think a little bit of perspective is very important. Last year, I started a job as a regulator in academic circles, as a co-editor in a journal. Let me tell you one thing. Regulators never get any Christmas cards, okay? Because they play a thankless role. If they do mandate strictures to protect one set of audience, it curbs innovation. If they encourage innovation, then they are blamed for creating a minefield so that the entrepreneurs can experiment on vulnerable population. Let's take auto industry, for example. I just alluded to it. It took us 50 years to mandate seatbelts. Let me ask here, how many of you wear seatbelts regularly while driving? Right? Okay, if I had asked this question 20 years ago in India, I would have been laughed at. You know, seatbelts is for Americans, please. We are Indians, we drive freely, right? How many years did it take after that to mandate airbags? So, you know, when things are changing, at that time when Model T came about, the cars were driving at 30, 40 kilometers. Now cars can go at 150, 200 kilometers. So yes, you know, regulators are not soothsayers. It takes time, and some of it hurts.
I think you are seconding my view. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. You know, the regulators are always doing a catch-up game. So they are far, far behind that, right? I mean, you will agree with that. And that's where the self-regulation comes. And that's where my question was that who is going to basically, create an awareness and educate this large, unorganized, fragmented audience, about data security, data privacy, what rights they have, because that's where the large gap is. An organization, a large organization, will always have that intervention among its own stakeholders, employees, etc., to implement those things. But small organizations, small users doesn't know, right? And they're just swept by a new product or a new technology which comes and they start using it. I mean that's basically the challenge. That's the point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. We have time for maybe 2 more questions. The students have been waiting very patiently. So yeah, at the back. Young lady at the back from whom the mic was ruthlessly taken away.
Thank you so much, panel, for the insightful discussion, and good afternoon, everyone. So my question to the panel is, are the GCC and the GBS models of the organizations helping us achieve the mission of digital transformation faster? Or is it that these models are always built with the core idea of digital transformation, or the focus is on other functionalities like sustainability, etc. as well?
I didn't hear you. What GCC?
The Global Capability Center or the GBS models of the organizations like Accenture, etc. They're built with the focus on digital transformation. Are they helping us achieve the digital transformation faster? Or are they always built with the core idea of digital transformation?
Maybe let me answer this. I used to, in my previous organization, there was a GCC which was under my, kind of purview. So I think let's understand what GCC is. A Global Capability Center is a talent pool, in a country like India, not only for cost, but for innovation, speed, agility, etc. That's why they're called capability center, not outsourcing centers in any ways. And I think their idea is to be part of the global value chain in some way, to contribute to the overall transformation of any organization. But by themselves, they're not the full value chain. They're a part of it. And for example, they may develop digital products, they may be working on supply chain model, they could be doing AI, they could be doing GenAI. And depending on different organizations, how much they want to leverage it. But they will always be part of the, the global agenda in some way and not be an isolated case in some way, yeah.
I'll just add, and I know there's a lot of buzz on GCCs and GBSs. You see articles every day in newspaper and on LinkedIn. I think what you are saying is their aspiration, right? Driving digital transformation for parent organization. Only a few of them are there at the right side of the journey. I think a lot of them have to get, it needs a lot of investment. It needs a lot of consistent commitment to this model. I heard very interesting thing. It's a capability center, and parent organization need to treat them as such. So that's the aspiration, but they are all on their journey. Only few have got to that.